Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Hayes, and I'll be co-hosting the show today along with Michael. Michael has a couple of appointments, so he may be chiming in at any moment. And Jeannie is in the chat room and watching for callers that are coming in. Hopefully we can communicate with each other about what's going on. My name is David Hayes. As I said, I am the coordinator out at Heartland, Michael's Retreat Center in the Ozark. And we invite you to go to our website of www.why, again, it's WHYAGAIN, and you can download the book, complimentary, of Why Is This Happening to Me Again, of Michael and Jeannie. And we're going to be talking about what we do on this radio show. For the people that are listening in maybe for the first time, this is called the MindShifters Talk Show, and Carol Guy has made this available for us from the Fifth Dimensional Living. She does a show on Mondays at 2 o'clock. And thank you very much, Carol, for allowing us to be part of this growing group. And so we started this MindShifters group back in January for the first-time callers. And our purpose in having this show is to support people in learning new information and looking at things in a different way and taking charge of their life, being in charge of it, rather than to ask that question so often, why is this happening to me again, then you'll get a better understanding of why it is. We're going to be taking things from the book, and as I said, Michael will be joining us periodically today. And if there's any questions or thoughts, comments that you'd like to make about the show, the whole purpose of this show is to create a space for people to learn something new, to learn something different, and we have to be open to that possibility of learning something new. And there's an expression, I can't do something I don't know if I keep doing what it is that I do know. And a famous one that's been used periodically around that you may have heard of, the definition of insanity, is to keep doing this thing over and over and expect to get different results. That's when we usually wind up at that space of going, why is this happening to me again? So the things that we're going to be talking about here, and the Mind Shifter is about shifting the mind, about where it is that we're seeing things, where we're coming from. So it's, let me tell you what it's not, and incidentally even saying what it's not. I'm addressing that in the fashion that most of us already have a preconceived idea of what it is. And once that we have that preconceived idea, then our mind blocks everything out in order for us to only see it the way that it is. So some folks think that, well, this is someone's belief or ideas about what I should be doing or what I shouldn't be doing. And we're here to support you in you exploring and taking a look at what it is that you believe, what it is that's running your life. You know, we have been taught from all different cultures and all different ways of life of who it is that we are. We use a certain language in learning something new, and that one of them is what's reality and what's actuality. What's reality, in our definition of it here, is what goes on inside of our mind. And actuality is what's really going on outside of us. And it may sound a little bit strange when we refer to it as that, just because we've been so programmed to believe, well, this is reality. This is what's really happening out there. And the truth of it is there is some actuality out there, and it's only a reflection. It's only the projection or the externalization of what it is that's going on in our mind. And the workshops that Michael does, then, sounds like someone's on there. Is someone on there? Is that you, Michael? Anyway, there are actualities and there's realities. What we've called reality is something that's outside of us, and we call it that is real. And so with the ways that we look at it is that we have certain information within the content of our brain cells, into the content of our mind, that when it is triggered or something outside of us triggers and resonates some information that we have within our content, well, then it projects an image in our mind of what it is that's going on, and we then project it out there onto someone or something that's outside of us, saying that's what it is. And there's several different examples that Michael uses in the workshops. And on the radio here, I thought about this. This is a challenge in order to paint a picture of what it is so that we can get into communication about who it is that we are. That's one of the things that we look at, like who are we? Have you ever asked yourself that? And most people that go on in life with them, at some point, what do? They have to question, who am I? What am I doing here? What's my purpose in life? Where did I come from? Where am I going? And this space is created. We're looking at that in a different venue. And I'm hearing some background noise. I don't know if that's Michael that's on there or someone else that may have come on. Is there someone else on?
I am here, yes.
Ah, there you are. Well, good. Well, I wasn't sure. I spoke with Jeannie a little bit earlier, and the signal wasn't able to come across very well. So,
right.
Welcome, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm blessed and highly favored. Good. And I'm actually just sitting at a television station, KPVM TV in Pahrump, Nevada, where I'm getting ready to go in and do a television interview. So at some point, probably 20 to 30 minutes down the road, I'll be handing this back to you and going in and doing that television interview. And it's supposed to be about 10 minutes. And when I'm finished, I'll click back into the show, and we'll get to hang out and play a little bit.
Okay. Sounds good. So I was just explaining to the audience the best of my realities and how I see the work that it is that you're teaching, and what I've been learning from you is about defining certain things about who it is that we are. Actually, in the workshop we even talk about our true essence of who it is, and when everyone that comes into the world comes in as this picture, as this essence of our true essence. So anyway, would you like to comment on that and talk about that while you're on the air? Or something else that you want to talk about? I'm not sure if we have any questions or anyone else calling in. So I'm unable to view
David?
Right now.
David?
Yes. Hello.
Hey, Dr. Tim.
This is Tim. David, your connection is quite poor, cutting in and out. I wonder if you could hang up and call in again and get a better line.
Yep, I'll be glad to do that, Tim. Obviously, Jeannie is on there and able to control some things, so I'll hang up and call back in.
Okay, fabulous. And how are you today, Tim?
I'm doing quite well, thanks. It's exciting. You're going to be on television or radio, did you say?
Yeah, we're doing a television interview. We've got 10 minutes on a news show here in Pahrump, Nevada. There's a medical group where the medical doctor that is one of the practitioners in the group called Healthcare Partners is actually writing prescriptions to people to do forgiveness work. And every week at 2 different medical clinics, they have support groups that are working with people on worksheets and getting absolutely awesome results. So this medical group is sponsoring me doing a workshop at a senior center here in Pahrump, Nevada this Thursday night, and we're going to be doing an interview based on that information, let the community know about it, invite them out to the senior center. So if there happens to be anybody from Pahrump, Nevada on the call today, we'd be delighted to have you join us 7 to 9:30 at the Senior Center on West Basin in Pahrump, Thursday night, 7 to 9:30. And then, of course, next week we're going to be in Las Vegas actually starting on the 10th, April 10th through the 15th. We're going to be at the Unity Center in Las Vegas, actually kind of right on the border of Henderson and Las Vegas near the airport. We'll be doing a 5-day free series of workshops starting on the 10th. So we've got lots happening out in Las Vegas. We did an intensive this weekend. It was just a 2-day mini residential, which was awesome, and lots of breakthroughs, lots of insight. It's always just so powerful and such a blessing for me to be able to share the tools that I teach and that I have had the privilege of learning, and to pass them on to others, as I know that you're doing. And it is just such an awesome thing to be able to do and to give to people. People who are at their rope's end. We had a couple of folks in the intensive this weekend that were kind of at their rope's end around several different issues. One in particular, a young lady whose mother, drugs and alcohol and leaving kids and her rage at it. And along about the middle of the first day of the intensive, all of a sudden she goes, "Oh, I see. My mother just didn't know any better. My mother didn't know what to do about it. I got it. I've had some of that happen in my life too, so now I can let go of that and start to become some support for the healing of my mother who, up until that morning she was simply enraged at." And, so often people carry that hostility and that fear and have no idea that it can be taken apart, that it can be dismantled. And then we can look at life through different filters, and those filters make such a difference. Go back all the way to Paul, who said we see as though through a glass darkly. And that hostility and fear darkens our vision. And so we're here to support everybody on the planet in getting their vision back on track with the active presence of love. How'd the support group go this week?
It went beautifully. About a year ago, I had someone I was working with, and I was exposing them in my private practice to the Reality Management Worksheet. And she was a kind of an organized person, and she came in with 60 or 70 copies of the worksheet spiral bound. And so I made a set like that and took it to the group and shared it with them, and nothing happened until last week. Somebody came in with about 60 sheets copied and then spiral bound. And today someone walked into my office with what turns out to be the Reality Management Workbook. So on the front of it, he copied your schematic of the human mind and put a definition for RUCA. And on the inside cover, he copied your emotions wheel. And then he put about 50 or 60 double-sided worksheets and then ended with a MindShifter, that worksheet. And on the back end of that, he put your 2 stories, Will You Make a Difference, and The Rose and the Butterfly, and then spiral bound gave it to me.
Awesome. Well, we actually used to carry a book like that. We actually had several of the worksheets in a book along with 200 worksheets, and being on the road, carrying paper gets kind of long, and so we kind of discontinued that, but that was something that we did carry for a while so that people would just pick up a book and start to do worksheets without thinking about making copies. Maybe that's something we should do again. Just by the time you haul books and tapes and clothes for 6 to 10 months on the road, it's a lot of paper to carry.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I sent you an email with pictures of the cover and the inside cover and a little explanation, and he's going to try and send me the files so that he was able to find somebody who would print these just for the cost of the paper, and so he made up a whole batch of them for our group just to give the group.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
So I look forward to being able to send you the files so you can see his layout. He's got quite a nice little creative eye, and he's using all your material, so it's even better.
Sounds like he's done a nice job of it. Awesome. I'll look forward to seeing it. Maybe you could even mail me a copy.
Yep, I will do that. If you can tell me where you're going to be long enough.
Okay. I will. I've actually got to send an email out today to someone else to give them our address where we'll be in Las Vegas as of next week, and we'll be there for 2 weeks, so we will be able to receive mail in Las Vegas. And I will put a copy of that email to you. So be able to do that. Awesome. And in terms of process in the support group, in the MindShifters support group, any major miracles to share?
Well, I kind of consider all of them miracles, major, minor. We had somebody do a worksheet last week on his fear that something he had done for his wife that he thought was going to be nice, that it would be met with rejection. And one of the fascinating parts of it is as he worked through the negative emotions he was feeling and the punishment thoughts were so out of proportion for the nice thing he did and any reasonable expectation of a response from his wife, that was his biggest insight, that when he actually put the pen on the paper and wrote out his punishment thoughts, that was a shocker right there. And then by the time he got through the worksheet, of course, it was quite productive for him, so he gave up a lot of that fear and the punishment thought. But that's, as you keep saying, it's so important to put the paper to the pen to the paper and put it out in front of you rather than keep it bottled up in your head, because when you do, you see it from an entirely different perspective.
Right. Well, and you can shift and see it through a different filter. You reminded me of the caveat that was given to the Jews back several thousand years ago by Moses, and you hear it in a twisted way quoted oftentimes in this culture when they say, well, even Moses said an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, like I have a right to my vengeance. But as with this fellow's insight, he saw that his punishment was so disproportionate. And if you go back and you read the kind of punishments, the kind of atrocities that would be done to others for the smallest offense, then you realize that Moses was not giving anybody permission to take vengeance on anyone. What he was doing was limiting the vengeance that somebody could take. Okay, if somebody took your eye out, okay, if you have to, you can go and do that, but you can't go kill their whole family, their village, their dogs, their cats, their goats, and their sheep. You can't do that, which is what they would do. It's what would happen. So yeah, when we start to get a sane human perspective, and it's so important to understand that first law that Yeshua spoke about is not about, when it says love your neighbor, it's not about behavior to our neighbor. It's about keeping a condition in our mind so that we see our neighbor through the filter of love instead of through the filter of hostility and fear. Changes everything. And of course, when we see ourselves, the same law applied to us. When we see ourselves through that filter, we get to see ourselves much differently. And that human perspective, that loving, gentle, respectful perspective, rather than the animalistic perspective that comes from the survival world and the survival game that most people think the world is still about, and it's not about any of that. And it's certainly time for us to wake up to who we humans are and to function as humans. And it's certainly awesome to watch people make the shift from one of those filters to the other.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And the idea of being able to do it in the group, it just builds momentum. And we had somebody else in the group last week who was commenting on, even though they didn't do the worksheet out loud, they followed along as somebody else did the worksheet, and it gave them insight into a problem that they've been struggling with. So the ripple effects, the synergy that goes on when someone decides to start a MindShifter group is just fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. The mini intensive we did this weekend, it was actually organized by a medical doctor out here who's the one who's prescribing forgiveness to patients and to his office staff. And as one of the steps in the workshop this weekend, or one of the things that came up for him was, as he watched these people that he knows, it was primarily his staff, and it was people that he knew. And at one point in the workshop, he kind of sat back and sort of shook his head, and it's like, I'd have never known that these kind of issues were going on in people, that people carried these kind of loads, and that's the stress they're laboring under. And it was actually as people were sharing after the still point breathing, his main sharing after he breathed was his appreciation for the fact that he had a way now to start to help people to get in touch with what was under the surface, to make it safe to speak about it and to move through it. And it was just, for him, he's been a practicing physician for, I'm not even sure, probably 25 years or so. And now, for the first time, he's taking these tools to people and actually teaching them how to do their lives. And, of course, the original meaning of the word physician is teacher. And so it's cool to watch how it catches on and how the genius of each human being, the genius of what you've been doing with people for, about 4 years, going on 5 years now in Chicago area is awesome. And much appreciated that you helped to build the momentum, because, of course, our goal is to take it to every mind, heart, and being on the planet, and that means that we're going to get to a point of critical mass.
And the other thing that you talked about quite a bit last week that I like so much is that the Reality Management Worksheet is such a flexible tool that it doesn't really matter what problem someone comes in with. This is the tool. It's the same tool.
Right.
It applied to a relationship issue, a physical ache or a pain, an internal anger, an anger at somebody else, a sense of shame, of not being good enough, of not fitting in my family. All of these issues can be dealt with this primary tool of forgiveness, of dismantling a false reality within my mind-body energy system. It's why it's the core of the work that I've been doing with people for years and years now, and your Reality Management Worksheet just makes it that much easier.
Yeah, this physician that I'm talking about, his name's Dr. Stephen Andraki, and Jeannie had dinner with another physician that he wanted to introduce to this, and someone who was having some challenges, and Stephen shared this perspective that, he just needs one tool. It doesn't matter what somebody comes into his office with. He just needs one tool in order to put them in touch with and give them a way to change what's happening in their lives. And this other physician just shook his head. It's like, well, how could one thing? No, that doesn't make sense. And it occurred to me to come up with the analogy of, okay, let's imagine we've got 1,000 people, each watching a different television station. And, of course, the frequencies in your mind, the realities in your mind are nothing but a show put on by the content of brain cells. And so you've got somebody who's watching a horror film where people are being murdered. You've got somebody else who's watching a soap opera where, somebody's having infidelity issues and somebody's cheating on somebody, and somebody else is watching a television show where they're beating up on, and, you got 1,000 different dramas and traumas going on. There's one solution for all of it. You change the channel. And forgiveness in ancient Aramaic is how you change the channel in your mind. It's interesting, in the Aramaic language, the word that's been translated as soul, it's nafsha, and it's also properly translated as a tuning mechanism. It's just like a television tuner, that what frequencies are we attuned to? And we tend to attune to the frequencies that hold drama and trauma from our past generations. And, of course, while those things are playing out on the screen of our mind, we believe everything that's there because we see it, we experience it, we feel its effects. It isn't ketchup blood, it's the real thing. And to recognize that we live in an energetic world, a frequency world, and there is a single, simple solution. Not always easy, but a simple solution. And the simple solution is that of changing the frequency in your mind, which is the process of forgiveness. And I'm so appreciative so often when we'll hear from somebody who comes to just a simple "Why is this happening to me again?" workshop, and then at some point later, maybe that evening or a week later or 6 months later, we hear back from them, and they tell us that they were getting ready to commit suicide that day, and that all of a sudden they understand that what had them driven to the point of suicide was just an energy in their minds. It was changeable, that it wasn't permanent, it wasn't real, it wasn't even what was happening. It was just what was happening in the mind. And so it's pretty awesome to gather that understanding and then to be able to put it in a form that we can share it with others. And of course, that's what we're here for. And we got David back on the line. Are you with us, David? I wonder what happened to David. Oh, good. Well, you're still all chopped up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with your phone, but it's still real choppy. It's like you're cutting in and out. I don't know, is there a different place on the property that you need to go to, perhaps? I don't know, I guess you're up where the computer is so that you can be tapped in with Jeannie?
Yeah.
Must be the signal there, Phil. Maybe just forego the watching the chat room to get messages from Jeannie at this point. Maybe you could just forego that and go where you've got a better signal, because it's really hard. It's like every word you say is chopped in half. So I suspect it's probably because of the signal that's there. So if you want to just go back across the road where there's a better signal, because I'm going to be disappearing from here in probably the next 3 to 4 minutes to go in and do this television review. And then as soon as we're finished I understand it's going to be about 10 minutes, although I've had it happen before where 10 minutes becomes 30 minutes because we get into the topic and it gets interesting. So, but I anticipate I'll be back on the show in a few minutes after the interview. And I'm out here. I'm actually sitting in the back of this television station. I'm sitting outdoors to have a quiet place to do the show, and I'm looking out over some snow-capped mountains. It's probably about 80 degrees here today. Lots of greenery in the desert, which is, being springtime, the green, the flowers are just awesome. And then sitting off in the distance, and I don't even know the name of this mountain, but there's this huge mountain peak that's just covered in snow, and it's just an awesome day out here in Pahrump, Nevada.
Sounds delightful.
Yeah, how's the weather in Chicago, Tim?
Oh, we got about 45 degrees and overcast.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me any better now?
Oh, much better, David. How's the weather in Missouri?
It's about the same what it sounds like in Chicago right now. It's just a little overcast, part of the shifting and the changing with it. And Tim, are you able to be on the computer? Are you watching the chat room at the same time or no?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe since I'm unable to communicate with Jeannie, would you be willing to check and let us know if there's any questions or anything that's come on?
Sure.
Any comments? Cool.
It's a bit of a complexity because where Jeannie is, she's got she can get on the control panel for the radio show, but her cell phone doesn't get a signal. I'm in town where I've got a cell signal, but I can't communicate with her, and she can't tell us when somebody's getting ready to come on the show. So that's why David was up where the computer is at Heartland, but obviously the phone signal isn't so good there. So it's the game of technology. It's awesome. I'm so appreciative of the fact that we can be doing this. And Carol from Earth Angels Network, Radio Network, thank you for facilitating and helping us to put this show together so that we can be offering the tools of forgiveness to every mind, heart, and being on the planet.
Yeah. And since it is coming in a little clear, if I may, I'd like to make a comment to Tim around the report that you were talking about, the people that are sitting there listening to someone do a worksheet and not even doing a worksheet themselves, and that they get a healing through that. And to me, it says it all about if I'm paying attention and I'm connected with someone coming from that space of love, and they are coming from the space of love, as Michael talks about, when one person gets healed, there's more people that get healed from it. And to me, it signifies that we're all connected, that when something is healed within someone else, if I'm in resonance with that, then whatever it is that's within me that I identify, because we're all, that is that connection, then we're all healed. It's kind of like I really appreciate the suggestion on that, the mystery of water. I think that is, to me, really significant. It shows that when when there is clean water, so to speak, or healthy water that's put into water that's been polluted, then it heals the polluted water as well too. It doesn't even take as much of it. It's really a fabulous video to watch. Did you ever get a chance to watch that, Michael?
No, I have not. We didn't have a very good connection, internet connection, so I wasn't able to download. It was too big a file. But once I get where I've got one next week, we'll be in Las Vegas. But there's the principle that's spoken in the Course in Miracles says, when you are healed, you are never healed alone. And of course, there's that favorite African proverb of mine that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. It takes a community. It takes a whole group of people who say, I'm ready and I'm willing to live an actual human life. I'm willing to live as love. And then the commitment that it takes to take oneself through all the insanities that need to be cleared out to do that, and the power of a community to support, and the power of, this radio show, when one of my insanities comes up, that one of you guys can say, yeah, Michael, well, that's one perspective, but have you ever thought about this reality around that? And, that we can support each other in literally shifting the frequencies that are in our minds, literally shifting out of the hostilities, the fears, the rages, the griefs, the pains, and coming back to what we're designed to live as, out of a true human life. So I am delighted to be sharing the planet with both of you gentlemen and everybody that's on the radio show. The physician that I've been speaking about, Dr. Stephen Andraki, and his wife, Claudia. Claudia was introduced to this work when we were in Las Vegas about 12 weeks ago. And she just picked it up, and she has run with it. It's been awesome to watch her. She's got 2 different support groups that she's doing, one of them in Spanish. And this whole Spanish community is just awakening and moving. I mean, it's just so awesome to watch this young lady, and the power of her presence and her genius, her intelligence is absolutely awesome. And the number of people that she's impacting. And she's been doing the work for about 12 weeks. She was introduced 12 weeks, maybe 13 weeks ago when we were here in Las Vegas last time. And she did actually 2 5-day series of workshops and a 3-day intensive. And she just picked up the ball and ran. And I've had, at least a dozen people since we've come back here who've communicated with me, and the impact that Claudia Andraki has had on people's lives. And it's just cool to watch how the intelligence, when you pass this on to somebody, and somebody takes it and uses it, practices it, and passes it on. And it's been fun on several occasions. Actually, Dr. Andraki's nephews were here last week, and we did a worksheet. We did a Y workshop with them and did a worksheet with them, and it was around their dad. And Claudia had an issue with one of the family members being critical of these boys' father. And so it was kind of cool to watch as the boys collapsed their hostilities and fears and started to see differently. And then as Claudia did the same worksheet along with them, here she was just so awesomely open to. And here I thought it was about their family members, and here I am back to my own childhood and my own family issues. And I'm not sure who it was. I think it might have been Carl Jung that said that from 5 to the time of death is but a minute, but from birth to the age of 5 is a lifetime, meaning that most people's issues come in those first 5 years, and of course out of the genetics. And it's just awesome to tap people on the shoulder and get them to wake up from those early years and start to function in a different way. It's a privilege. And if anybody's got any questions or thoughts, let's click them through to the radio. Or are there any comments in the chat room, Tim?
Well, in the chat room, they just mentioned that there was a comment about how Moses had come from a warring tribe that had been used to protect parts of Rome, and then they decided that that warring tribe got too popular, and so they an Egyptian ruler decided to enslave them, but that backfired, and they revolted. There was also a comment about how it's so true that parents can only do what they can with the skills and knowledge and limitations they have, and we can't always see that as kids. So it's great to be opening people's eyes to that when they get older.
Yeah, when we go into the codependence work, we introduce the concept of a power person. Of course, as you gentlemen know, but for those on the radio, we introduce a power person. And the power person is a person who wasn't functioning out of love and had more power over your life than you did at some point, usually those early years, usually a parent, though not always. And when you remind people, because so many people have these really, like this young lady I spoke about earlier, raging griefs and pains toward their parents. And once they realize that their power person had a power person, who had a power person, who had a power person, and especially if they have children, because if they haven't cleaned up those issues, they are now the power person. And all of a sudden they start to go, oh, that's right, I've done some crazy things with my kids. I tried not to. I didn't want to, honest. I didn't want to hurt them. I wanted to do better. It's like, guess what? Your power person was the same. Now you've got the skills. Now pass it on to your children so that they don't have to pass it on to the next generation. And that's called leaving the desert and moving into the promised land. And we're here to support everybody moving out of the desert, out of the unconscious, out of that dissociated mind, and coming back to a real, true, honest-to-God human life.
And you know what's wonderful about that, Michael, is that was the reward of doing this work. And a lot, I think everyone goes through a certain stage, at least it's been my experience with it, that what am I doing this for? How long do I have to do this? What difference does it make? It's kind of like the story about the snowflake, what difference is it going to make? And I remember one story where there was where the crabs from the ocean are being swept up on or the shells are being swept up on, and this guy's walking along, and there's just thousands of them along the seashore, and he picks one up and he throws it into the water, and he bends down, picks another one up, and a fellow comes along and says, what are you doing that for? It's not going to make any difference. And he reaches down and he picks one up and he throws it, and he says, it made a difference to that one. It made a difference to that one. And to me, when there is this, all of it, that there are these breakthroughs, I had one with a friend of mine that I was in Vietnam with, and he called me. I called him this weekend, and he called me back, and he's in a pretty tough place in his life right now. And I've been talking with him about doing this type of work since 1986, and that's quite a while ago. And yesterday, he was open and receptive at a level that my first experience of him, of being able to receive and to hear this information a little differently. So that's one of the little miracles and the different things that go on just by doing the work.
David, I'm going to interrupt for a second. David, I'm going to interrupt for a second. Two things. Your phone's choppy again. I don't know why. And I'm going to need to go into this interview, so I will try to get back on the show before it completes. Love you both.
Okay.
Blessings.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I'm at the same place. I don't know, maybe it's just this particular area. Tim, can you hear me?
I can. It's bubbling though, so you're there.
Okay. Well, did you have anything that you said? Yours is coming through clear to me. If you want to go ahead and talk about something on the show, I'll just you host it, and I'll just listen to you, and if it comes through and I can make a comment, well, then I will. You willing?
Sure. We can spend a little time talking about forgiveness.
Uh-huh. Well, you know what? That talk that you gave, I thought that was really, really fabulous. And if it just comes to you about what forgiveness is, you might take a few minutes and reflect on that. I thought that was an excellent presentation.
Well, thank you. I'd be happy to. I was asked to answer the question, forgiveness, who really needs it? And I was giving a talk at the Unity Church in Crystal Lake, and things just kind of fell together. After having done Michael's work for going on to 6 years now, running this MindShifters group, understanding that, to begin with, everything that I am perceiving, I'm the only one on the planet that perceives it that way. And on a number of occasions, even in the past year, I've been with a group of people and something's happened and I've gotten upset by it, and the rest of the people in the group are wondering what I'm so upset about. So whatever comes through my eyes and my ears is not the same as what comes through the eyes and ears of other people. It may have started out that way on the outside, but by the time it gets into my brain, I have interpreted it. I have created distortions. I've used my history to build the reality that shows up in my brain. And the definition of forgiveness that we're using with this work is that forgiveness is a tool for dismantling, for canceling those false realities that end up showing up in my mind and creating anything like hostility or fear. So it doesn't matter what the outside picture is. If when I look out through my eyes, my internal response is hostility or fear, I have somehow distorted it. I have somehow interpreted it and made it something so that I experience myself and the situation I'm in as being less than love. And as we talk in this work, time and time again, ancient scriptures from almost every religion talk about God as being love and as God as being everywhere and the energy of creation. So if that's all there is out there, how could I experience anything other than that energy of love? Well, the answer is because by the time it comes in through my eyes and ears, I've changed it. It's been influenced by my heredity, it's been influenced by my past experience, and my creation of belief that I am something less than love, or that I deserve something less than love. And I really like the work that's contained in the book, The Way of Mastery. And Chapter 3 from The Way of Mastery is, to my eye, and again I interpret it, but it's very, very similar to Michael's work about forgiveness. And the essence of that work is that my work in forgiveness is to forgive myself for the judgments, or dismantle the judgments that I have made about my brother or sister. And when I do that, when I stop judging, I move to that experience of acceptance, which might be called the energy of love. And within that energy, I reset a filter in the front of my mind, which Michael has interpreted from the ancient Aramaic, to be a filter in my mind over my intentions. And I can set that filter to Rachma, which is one of the 17 words from the Aramaic language that have all been translated into the one word love in the Greek. But what Rachma stands for is a filter in my mind over my intentions, and that filter allows only intentions keyed to love to be used as the formulation of my goals, for the foundation to formulate my goals. And as we understand, the human mind doesn't do anything unless it has a goal. So goals drive my behavior, and if I keep Rachma set in my mind, then the intentions that are used to formulate my goals are always going to be loving. And then my experience of the world is going to be more loving. And there's also a filter in the back of my mind that's a filter over my perception, and that can also be set to a loving filter, and the word for that from the ancient Aramaic is kuba. And so if I have the filter in my mind over my intentions set to love, and the filter in my mind over perception set to love, then I'm going to allow myself to only intend and only perceive loving energy coming to me from the outside.
Tim, if I can throw in a thought there, I'm actually not on the TV show yet. They've got a few more minutes, but and what you're describing there is what in Aramaic was called perfect love. And when they said perfect love casts out fear, what they were saying was that your mind can't generate a fear-based reality. When you shift into that Rahman Kuba, that's a great explanation of it. Right on track.
And you stepped in and said exactly what I was going to say. That the idea is every time I'm feeling anything like hostility or fear, I've created it. It didn't come from actuality.
Yep. And, of course, those things in me with which I created, another way of speaking about it in the ancient language was, they were the money changers in the temple. This body, mind unit, is our temple. And if we have realities from past generations of hostility and fear, and something comes along and resonates, something perfectly wonderful and loving can show up and resonate one of those transmuters of energy, and all of a sudden we go into rage. And that was symbolized by the money changers, and that we need to go into our own temples with great clarity, great power, and great commitment to eradicating all of the money changers that don't serve us, and that is all of the transmuters in our minds based in hostility or fear have to be removed, because whenever they're being used, they are literally corrupt data. They literally lie to us. And, of course, we are sure that what's going on in our mind must be true about someone else. And, it's kind of like, in a sense, it's the bad news, but it's the greatest news you could get. The reality that shows up in your mind really only tells you the truth about you. And once you realize that, then you have the opportunity to apply the tool of forgiveness to that reality and remove it. And it's certainly a powerful thing when you get a hold of that and start to do it.
Michael, are you going to be on for a couple more minutes?
I'm going to be on probably for about another 2.5 minutes.
Okay. Well, somebody was asking, recently I was asked for forgiveness by a couple. I was able to say okay, but I still do not wish to be around them. With time, I may change my mind. In the meantime, what are your thoughts about keeping my distance from this couple?
Well,
I do not understand forgiveness if it is for myself, not anyone else.
Right. So the thing that has you not wanting to be around them might be a fact. Gee, they're crazy. They do crazy things. See, if I've got somebody who wants to do crack cocaine every night, I might choose to spend my time somewhere else. And I have every right to do that. Of course, I have the choice. But if I'm choosing not to be around them because they resonate some form of hostility or fear in me, they actually may be the gift that shows me and can bring to me the very energy that I need in order to heal. And so one of the things that I suggest to people, first of all, if it's some form of hostility or fear in you that has you wanting to be out of their space, that's your work. It's not theirs. And as you do that work, you might find them quite acceptable. In fact, they might, and oftentimes I've seen it happen, they might turn into your best friends. And, of course, we have the right at any point to say, I choose not to engage in the behavior they do, so I'm not going to be around them. But there's a reason, there's something in me that drew that to me. So as I walk away from them and choose not to be around them, I recognize that I'm going to continue to do my own work and clean out my own mind so that I don't have to pull somebody else in to do it to me again. Otherwise, if you don't ever learn to truly forgive, and that is change the content of your own mind, then you absolutely will get to live the title of my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Because the mind makes up these realities that we say that it's something outside of us that causes this pain, but the thing that causes this pain is the frequencies out of which our realities are made, frequencies that don't belong in human physiology. And when we put hostility or fear into the cell says, ouch, that hurts, stop it. And our pain is just a warning signal to stop putting in frequencies that don't belong. Our pain is not a signal that somebody else is off base. Our pain is a signal there's something in us to be dealt with. Now, somebody else may be off base, but as long as we're off base, they're really not our business. Yes, you would say, why are you trying to take the speck out of their eye? Well, you have a beam in your own. You got your own work to do. And so what we're looking to do is to continue on the path of each of us supporting the other in doing the work of removing. It comes down to the very capacity, to remove the capacity to even generate any form of hostility or fear, no matter what happens in our world. And, of course, that's a tall order. It's not a work for wimps, as we've said before.
Yes, but it is made very, very doable with the proper tool, like the example you give about the people trying to get rid of their parking lot with toothpicks for 20 years and proving to themselves it can't be done. And yet, if you have the right tool, that parking lot's going to be history in a matter of a few hours. So exactly, yeah. Well, once again, I'm going to leave the show, and so I won't be back because my interview here is 10 minutes, so it's going to take up the next 10 minutes of this show. You've got about 10 minutes left, so I need to head back inside. I've got the last 10-minute segment in this television show, and we'll look forward to hearing from everybody tomorrow. We'd love to have questions on any challenges or any instruction that folks need on the Reality Management Worksheet process or any of the other tools. Go to the website, www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, download worksheets is the link. Pick up the first two links and start putting the pen to the paper. We hold the space that you are about to have the best year yet of your eternal life. Tim, thank you for your support. As always, it's awesome to be on the planet with you and sharing this space. Blessings. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
And we had someone in the chat room who was asking about that question about forgiving someone else and not quite understanding the concept of forgiveness. They just said that they've also worked with A Course in Miracles, so on one level they do understand. I have been telling people for years now that each time I watch these videos again, I understand another little piece and another little layer. And it's one of the benefits of working with these tools and teaching them to others is that I keep getting exposed to them. So when I first began, I maybe only understood forgiveness the way Michael's teaching it, the way a preschooler might understand the concepts of good and bad or pain versus pleasure. And after going on 6 years now of running the MindShifters group and showing these videos every week, I'd say I'm more like somebody who's ready to graduate high school in my level of understanding of this tool. And it's a process of me undoing my conditioning, years and years, decades of conditioning that taught me that everybody else is responsible for making me angry or hurting my feelings or making me feel confused or making me feel inadequate or disrespecting me. And I have to, if I'm going to get a handle on this, I have to keep making my purpose to be seeing how I'm creating all feelings of discomfort or fear or hostility in my mind. And the more I do that, the easier it becomes. It's like practicing any skill. The more I practice, the easier it gets. I simply can't do it even if I concentrate on it consciously. And eventually, if I'm concentrating on it consciously, I get to be able to do it. And if I keep practicing that, I'll become competent at it when I'm thinking about it. And if I keep doing it, years later, I may be able to do it without even really being conscious that I'm doing it. So it's not just building the awareness, it's practicing the skill until it becomes an art. And until, as Guy Finley would say, I don't just get to be good at singing. If I practice, the singing begins to teach me. The music begins to inform me, and I get to express the music more and more clearly. So another comment from the IM site on the website is that A Course in Miracles says, and leave a clean and open space within your mind for Christ to come. This is bringing love to the issue it dissolves. And this is exactly Michael's work. When he discusses the factor that heals anything unlike love in my mind, it is my ability to hold my awareness to the fact that I was created out of the source of love. And so if I can hold that energy of love in my mind as conscious, active, and present, then whenever I do that and something unlike love comes up, anything unlike love gets transmuted into the energy of love, gets absorbed into the energy of love. Another way to talk about this is Guy Finley says, fear, psychological pain, negative emotions, these are not my enemy. But fear of them keeps me from seeing that this is so. All these negative emotions that I experience can be seen as the warning signal in my human mind-body energy system that I've missed the mark, that I'm putting a negative disintegrative energy into my body. So if I start feeling angry, and I've trained myself to be aware of what anger really means in a world where I'm no longer physically threatened, anger then means, hey, wake up, Tim, you're making a mistake. And in Michael's lecture on A Course in Miracles, A New Beginning, he says, maybe I can recognize that the fact that I'm in pain is an indication that I'm in error. And maybe I can teach myself to say at the beginning of each day, this is the kind of day I want to have. And I can focus on having a loving, peaceful, respectful day. And then whenever something unlike love comes up, maybe I can say, oh, I hope I have this wrong. Oh, maybe I can forget to have a question and forget an answer. Maybe I can hope that I have this wrong and ask, I wonder if there's another way to look at this situation. Because in truth, if I'm in pain, I've created it. In a world that is created in the essence and likeness of God, and if God is love in that energy, and if everything is connected, I must be making a mistake if I'm not experiencing that love in each moment. And again, the healing power of the Michael Ryce Reality Management Worksheets, of the Way of Mastery and A Course in Miracles, the healing power is that energy of love. And my ability to bring my conscious awareness to my reality as coming from the nature of love. So, A Course in Miracles, A Way of Mastery, Guy Finley, Michael Ryce, all fabulous teachers of a very simple but powerful technique to transform our lives. So
as well as Dr. Tim.
Well, thank you. So there's a comment on the chat room about my toughest lesson in A Course in Miracles came many years ago, and it's to send love to an enemy. And this person said they were able to do it even though it was difficult. And they loved that person out of their lives, and that person had a very nasty habit. Jeannie then says, this is the first law, is to have the condition of love active in my mind whenever I think of God, neighbor, or self. And it doesn't have to do with the behavior towards them. This is about my mind being focused in that energy of love. And as we were talking about earlier, my choice to set the filter of Rachma and Kuba and keep them active in my mind. So we've got about a minute, I've got about a minute left. We wanted to remind people, if they'd like to call in tomorrow, that the number is 646-200-4169. And the website, again, that has a free copy of the book to download is www.whyagain.com. WHYAGAIN.com. And all the worksheets we've talked about today and a number of others are also available for free download. And if you go to the website, on the right-hand side, there's a link that says Download Worksheets. And we got 30 seconds left. David, take her away.
Oh, well, you did fabulous. Thank you so much, Tim. I'm not sure how this is coming through. Thank you, everyone, and Michael and Jeannie and everyone that participated. We will chat with you tomorrow. Namaste.
Blessings.